Hello and welcome to the middle. It has been 1 year since the whole world shut down and the pandemic was like everything we were talking about. And so I wanted to take a minute and just reflect on being in the middle of this last year and the pandemic and maybe what we can take from it going forward, what we've learned, what we've lost, and what we've loved. And so those are the three areas I'd like to just touch on. I think as a global community, we felt like we were having this similar experience. Like everyone in the world was experiencing this pandemic. But what I've come to understand is that doesn't mean that everybody's experience has been the same. If you lived in certain parts of the world or even certain parts of the United States, depending on your state, if you had certain kinds of work that you could pivot and do from home, if you had young kids, if you had teenagers, if you were in college, if you were married. So even though we were having a similar experience, it was not the same. And I think that's an important thing to understand, that as we kind of have a new year, that's what I'm kind of calling this middle of March moment is for me a new year. It's a time where at the end of a calendar year, I always reflect, I look back and I think, what have I experienced this year that I want to continue? What do I want to stop? How have I changed? How have I improved? Where do I want to change? And where do I want to improve? So you have full permission to kind of see this as another new year, to look back and consider what you want to leave behind. What did you lament? What did you lose? And what have you loved from this experience? And I know that maybe you're watching this way past we've achieved herd immunity and no one's maybe even considering it. I don't know what's going to be happening in the world in the future, but I really believe that God is always trying to give me opportunities to learn. And if I take them, then I can become better, but also prepare for what's still to come. And I really have found that that model helps me get through some hard stuff. So first and foremost, what have you learned? I'm going to just be honest. I have really felt like it's allowed me to refocus on what matters most. All of a sudden, the extras, especially the first few weeks of the pandemic, all of a sudden, everything felt like it stopped and shifted back to my family, my relationships, and what mattered most. Maybe at the time it was you needed to find toilet paper or paper towels in the store. And all of a sudden you realize that the thing you've learned is you need to store more paper towels. In our family, I was like, why are we going through so much cereal and chips? Those first few weeks, I was like, if we go through one more box of cereal, I'm going to scream. And we only had 3 people, sometimes 4 at home during the day. But I've learned that what mattered most was really my relationships. It wasn't the stuff. It wasn't the events that got canceled. It wasn't all the, things we were busying ourselves with. It was the people that mattered most. I learned more about Zoom. I had no idea how much I was going to learn about Zoom. And I've learned that Zoom or technology, various technologies like Zoom, has allowed us to work still, to worship, to go to school and have our education continue in some ways. And I also came to understand what forms of connection were the most important. Some of my relationships really changed this year. I learned that some relationships do really well and pivot and some struggle. And I was able to kind of see some of my relationships didn't handle the change in the routine. All of a sudden, I realized I talked to people in the car. And all of a sudden, those first few months, I wasn't in the car as much. And so there was a distance that started to happen. And so it allowed me to look back, reassess, see what relationships maybe needed more attention and support. What have we lost? We've lost lives. Some have lost jobs. We've lost activities that we have come to be traditionally excited about, like graduations, weddings, funerals. Things look different. Our faith may look different. We worship different. We've lost that maybe community feel that we had when we could just show up every week at church and we knew we could talk to each other and catch up on the week before. That's changed. Maybe you need to give permission to feel the feelings of loss. I don't know about you, but the last few weeks, I can almost feel in my soul that we're hitting the year mark on some of this, almost like some PTSD or trauma that I've wanted to give space for. So this is really good time to pull out your journal and maybe make a list of these things. What have you learned and what have you lost? And give space and permission for feeling the loss. Finally, what have you found that you love? I'm going to tell you that I have had much less FOMO. I feel like now if you don't want to be somewhere, you don't have to have a big reason. I hope that doesn't go back to whatever it was. I hope we give permission. I love that we get to choose where we want to show up and how we want to show up now. There's flexibility in that. And I really love that. I love that I've had more time with my family. I love that we have more online resources now ever before. This show launched in the middle of a pandemic. And in some ways, I'm really grateful for that, because maybe you found this show because you are spending more time watching YouTube channels and videos. And I hope that you have found a connection here with us as we have brought guests onto the yellow couch and I've shared messages with you that maybe you have found ways in which you've connected online and you've learned new things. I am not one of the people that posted on social media in the last year about learning how to make sourdough bread. It did not happen in my house. I also did not do some major like home renovation, do it yourself videos. That was not part of my last year. We did finish our backyard, and I do love that we now finished it to a place where I'm excited for it to be spring, to go back out there and enjoy it. And so for that, I'm really grateful. What are the things that you could maybe foster a conversation with someone you live with where you make this list out, you brainstorm, what have you learned? What have you lost? What do you love? And if you're living alone and you want to just keep it in a journal, I think it's really important to mark when we've had an intense experience like this last year has been, that we don't just let it pass by. We not only went through a pandemic, but there was political upheaval. There was racial unrest and intensity. Where I lived, there were earthquakes. Maybe where you lived, you had like some natural disasters that also happened on top of the pandemic. I think it's just really important to reflect. An activity of reflection allows us to like take it all in, because I don't know about you, but I have friends that we haven't always had words to put on what we've experienced, that it's been so unique. Now it's normal to see people in masks, and a year ago it wasn't. Maybe it's normal now to have online everything, and a year ago it wasn't. And what do you want to take with you? What do you want to keep from this experience? What do you hope doesn't go back to normal? Maybe you need to give yourself permission to decide, I'm not going back to the way it was, because I've learned this year that what matters most has nothing to do with maybe what's in my bank account or how my house looks or what decisions my kids are making. Maybe what matters most are the relationships that have sustained through this year. And maybe you can see that has readjusted your values and allowed you to have clarity in ways that you didn't have a year ago. I think when we go through some hard things, for me, it's always a testament that I'm stronger than I realize, and I don't know it until I'm on the other side of it. I know that for most of us, life isn't back to normal. Everything is not back to the way it was, and I don't know if it ever will be. I hope that in the ways I've changed for the better, I don't lose that. And I hope that whatever I still need to learn and whatever is coming, all the unknowns of the future, that I will take the lessons of this last year and apply them for the things that are still to come. And I hope that this show has provided for you some resources, some validation, some faith, some hope and connection through this last year that has been really intense. I'm not trying to oversimplify how intense it's been for many people. And we love you and we appreciate your support of the show. If you're finding us on our new channel, The Middle, we now have our own channel. We hope you'll like and subscribe. That makes a big deal. It makes a big deal. Yes, I know that I speak for a living. It makes a difference. It's a big deal is what I'm trying to say. When we have subscribers to a new channel, it helps us get out there and have people find us. And so if you're finding us on Saints Unscripted, that's still our home. You may see little clips of this episode there, but we want to make sure that this show continues to reach the people that need it. We love hearing from you. We love reading your comments. We read them. We take them in, even the mean ones. We send you love, even if you're not liking how many times. I think, what was it the other day? I said yes too many times in an interview and you didn't like that. So I'm human. Thank you for putting up with me and thank you for joining us here on The Middle. We'll see you again soon.